an academic, and if I want to find my way to the United States, well, perhaps I could actually only apply to a university that may be able to accept me. But then, my problem is it's as if I don't really have that kind of an issue. But then the African, the average Nigerian, is finding it so hard to survive. And then the next thing he thinks about is just to leave the country, which is still very difficult. And it still falls back to the leadership, the leadership problem, the leadership issue seems to be the greatest problem that we have in Nigeria. And it has been this way even before someone like me was born. I mean, I'm approaching my mid-40s now, and we keep talking about the same problem. We keep talking about unemployment. We keep talking about poverty. We keep talking about economic depression. We keep talking about the fact that electricity seems to be an issue. I mean, as you can see, as I speak to you, we have electricity, and it is because I'm actually living in a university. And of course, the proprietor of the university understands that if I have to do my research alongside with my colleagues, I need electricity. So he has actually made efforts to make that available. So what about the federal university? This is a private university. What about the federal university? I mean, they go on strike. The workers go on strike every now and then. And it's because the government does not want to cater for the federal universities. As I speak with you now, before the corona pandemic hit Nigeria, lecturers in the universities, in all federal universities, were on strike. They went on strike around February because the government has refused to heed to their demands. So it's a very complex situation, and it's actually getting worse. It's really getting worse. So I don't know. Reimagining in a hopeless situation. I don't know.
No, that takes up all the oxygen out of the room. The economic and the basic aspects of life and living seem to take up all the oxygen. The other thing that's interesting is it's nice to hear about. Well, just tell me. I was curious how worse has it gotten with COVID, because you guys are doing better with cases and right on that level. But what in terms of the chaos, let's say you just described, how has COVID specifically made that worse, or where has it made it worse?
Okay, made it worse. I don't know what the media is actually giving the entire world about the coronavirus in Nigeria, but I can tell you one thing: we're not recording too many deaths population. I know people actually have the virus. They actually contract the virus, but they recover. When it comes to health facilities, the government knows how to accept this kind of propagandist ideology about issues of health. They know how to pump money. When it gets worse, they know how to reach out that money and then throw it into the health, the health sector when this kind of pandemic actually occurs. I mean, I remember 3 years ago when the Ebola crisis hit Nigeria, and it was so swift. It was so swift. I mean, they sprang into action, and within 3 months, Ebola was no more. So the same thing is also happening with the pandemic, and I can tell you, in fact, between you and I, this is something I don't like telling people, but I had anosmia, which is also a symptom of COVID. I couldn't smell and I couldn't taste, and it became very shocking for my wife and kids. And I said, look, you need to isolate. I need to. So for like 2 weeks, I was in a room. They were actually separated from me. But then I recovered. I recovered because I got the proper treatment. I went to the hospital and I got the proper treatment. And then, of course, I had this pharmacist friend who had a very big pharmacy, somewhere in where I live in Akure, which of course Stephen, I've actually spoken to Stephen about Akure where I live, and he was very concerned, and within 2 weeks I was okay. So the point is, we are not recording too many deaths at all. I don't think so. But people fall ill, people contract the disease, but then they recover. They recover.
So the COVID response might be, seems to be a strategy the government, the forces that be, do well.
You are very correct, William. The point is that when elections are coming, when elections are coming, people are very timorous. They are hesitant about going out to vote. But then, when there are crises like these, the government knows how to spring into action, which is a very beautiful thing. But then at the end of the day, what about other things that actually matter? I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you consider the health issue and then take care of it. But there are other issues. So it's like moving in a cyclic, situation. It's the stupidity of encountering a problem and trying to solve it, but then using another means that is not essentially, ideal to solve that problem. So in other words, we will still fall back to that same problem. What if Ebola comes back again? What if another pandemic actually occurs? I mean, I don't know. What about the person that cannot even cater for himself? Talk less of catering for his health. What about somebody who's not even earning more than $2 per month? I mean, what would $2 do to an average man? What would it do to an average man with a family of 3? I mean, I don't know, but it's a very frustrating situation.
I was just wondering if you could localize the response to COVID and find out why that is so successful, and if that has any kind of kernel of ability to be, concretized, made real, and be used on some of the other issues that you and Nigeria is dealing with.
It's really, like I said, it's a complex situation. Some of us don't really understand it. I mean, you're doing well when a pandemic, breaks out. But then, what about the economy? What about fixing the universities? I mean, the last time they increased salaries for university teachers was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So what does that point to? Research funds are not made available. It's usually politicized, and you will have to rub shoulders. You will have to lick boots. You'll have to lick buttons with, at government houses before you can actually get their favors. I mean, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit, and that's why they're still on strike today. And then you find most lecturers from the federal universities migrating to the private universities because the proprietors of those private universities can actually pay, so they can solicit your expertise. So it's a very great problem. And one last thing I'm going to say is that when the elections are drawing near, these politicians induce people to vote for them by giving them peanuts. And then at the end of the day, when they come in, they don't do anything. They make promises and they don't do anything. I can't compare them to Trump because Trump has his own problems, so I don't want to go there. But I think Trump is better. But Trump is better. I won't lie to you. I think Trump is better. Of course, it's good to know the devil you're living with than the angel you do not know. But the point is that at least Trump is anyway. Don't let me bore you by taking a leap from Africa to the United States.
I have a question. In the America here, basically at the federal level, what we have is the herd immunity strategy, which is to do nothing and let it burn through and kill the weakest, 2%, 3%, 10%, whatever it might be. That's the strategy in this country. But that language isn't used because of the structure of our government. We'll refer to states' rights or something like that. So they're not going to admit it. But that's what we're doing. And I was wondering, in Nigeria, are they also pursuing a herd immunity strategy? Let the virus just run free? Or are they actually doing a better job than us and have a plan to contain it and to support people in lockdown? That's the question.
Well, I think they're actually containing it, and it's because they do not want it to get worse. They're actually doing well. They're importing health facilities. They're erecting isolation centers every now and then. I mean, it's something they take. It's actually a priority to the government. So they know very well that it will affect everyone, including government people. There were a few people who actually died among those in power. About 3 of them, the chief of staff of Buhari, what's his name now? He was the first to be infected, and I think he actually had a problem. He had a health problem before, so that also contributed to his death. And then 2 other people, like that, who I can't remember at the moment. But then the point is that they're really doing well. You give it to the Nigerian government. They are doing well. And now the universities are about to resume. That's the private universities. And we're actually taking precautionary measures as well. And we hope that it will have some lasting substance.
Yeah. I have a question about the climate situation. Because my understanding is that the Sahelian region extends into the northern part of Nigeria, and that it's an area where there may be traditional groups that are competing for resources because of the effect of warming and changing local environment on traditional ways of subsistence. And in Mali and Burkina Faso and other areas, they're having a lot of conflict that has never happened before in those areas between people coming from the desert region into the semi-desert, and there's a lot. It's usually thought of as being a situation of Islamic radicalism and terrorism. But I'm wondering if you are seeing a kind of a climate effect in Nigeria on stability.
You mean the Boko Haram?
That's
Fulani herdsmen.
Yeah, that's very famous. Yeah.
Oh, the Fulani herdsmen. Well, the Fulani people are a very horrible set of people, and you don't want to mingle with them. It's like dining with the devil with a long spoon. It's very terrible. I mean, an average Fulani man will tell you that he's visiting your house, and then when he visits your house, he will tell you, look, in the next 24 hours, I'm going to own this house. And they say, what do you mean? I mean, I own the entire world. I mean, and then you tell him, sorry, I work for this house. And now forget about it. What evidence do you have, to show that you work for this, you work to build this house? The Fulani man is a kleptomaniac, any day. And if you're not careful, a Fulani man will kill you. And that is why we didn't really understand why they were actually killing farmers, why they were actually killing innocent people. I mean, it's such a very stupid idea. It's such a very callous idea. I mean, farmers would actually work hard to cultivate the land and then, plant all sorts of crops, plant everything. I mean, work so hard to cultivate their land. And then before you know what's happening, they're bringing their cows, they're bringing their herds, they're bringing everything. They're bringing the goats, they're bringing everything there, not just to eat the grass, but also to destroy the farmland. And then the farmers will get angry. And before you say Jack Robinson, they're killing the people for nothing. And then the government is not even doing anything. Buhari will tell you, I mean, this is so, I don't know, maybe I'm becoming emotional now, but it's so bad. I mean, it's such a bloody despot. He will tell you he doesn't want to have anything to do. I mean, he will tell you he doesn't want to have anything to do concerning the issue. He cannot bring them to book. He can't bring the Fulani people to book because he is also a Fulani person. So the problem has actually subsided now. The antipathy has actually subsided now. Perhaps because of COVID, I don't know. Maybe if the pandemic actually runs to if we run pandemic to the end, perhaps they might begin again. You never can tell when this crisis actually will erupt. You really never can tell. And that again is another terrible situation.
But you don't think that the conflict relates to the competition for the pastures between people who are herding animals and people who are farming traditionally?
The point is, there was a time when the government said they would, in each state, in each region, they would provide farmland for herdsmen where they can actually rear their cow, where they can rear their goats without interfering with whatever the farmers actually do. Whatever progress they've actually made in that, and nobody knows. But what I can say for now is that this crisis have actually subsided. Now, I know there was a time when the government was actually proposing that, lands would actually be provided for the herdsmen to graze their, to provide that kind of environment for their herds. But maybe they're doing it. I don't know. Maybe they've actually provided. We don't know because there are certain news that you don't get to hear.
We have so much production of grain in the United States that we have to practically throw it away or turn it into fuel in order to get rid of it.
Government pays farmers to keep the market stabilized.
Well, that doesn't happen here. I don't think so. These are hardworking people who actually fend for themselves. Subsistence farming, etc. It's not as if they've actually provided everything. It's not as if they actually provided money to farm. These are hardworking people who actually earn their money from subsistence farming.
And how is the petroleum mining industry right now? Is it? I mean, the prices are completely destroyed, right? In terms of
and fuel is gradually increasing by the month. About a year ago, it was just 150 per liter, 150 naira per liter. And 3 months ago, it increased to 170. 2 months ago, it increased to 180. And there is this notorious prediction that it will rise to about 200, 250 in the next, by Christmas. So it's a deteriorating situation. It's so sad for a formidable for a country that is actually known for producing oil. So it's something that we don't have we can't really tell you any good news about that. It's always been worse.
Yeah, this has always been the problem in perception of Nigeria, because
there's this perception of this, resource-rich country,
Yes, you're correct. You're very correct.
Right? This resource-rich
You're very
country.
correct.
I mean, it's the biggest country in Africa by population, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But it's just about a few people, embezzling and looting the treasury and then doing what they want to do. The entire resources are not actually shared appropriately, and this is why you have all this constant problem.
Is the military involved in this, Tunde? The military?
Ever since the death of Abacha in 1998, the military have actually stood back, and they only watch and do exactly what the democratically elected people tell them to do. They do not interfere.
They don't give. That's interesting.
They don't interfere. Of course, I'm sure you know the history of Babangida and, of course, Abacha, who was dictators. And as it is today, they actually behaving themselves, and they're really doing well. Very responsible people, if you ask me, unlike what we had during the time of Babangida and Sani Abacha.
So the current government has it redistributed resources in a tribal way? What tribe was Obasanjo?
Obasanjo is Yoruba, just like me. No, Obasanjo is Yoruba, just like me.
Yoruba. Yeah.
Yoruba. Yeah, Yoruba.
Igbo.
Just not Igbo. Not Igbo. Igbo is at the east, and we are the south, and then the Hausas are the north.
Yeah.
So because we have an Hausa man in power now, a majority, about let's say 70% of his cabinet are Hausa people, which is really a very obnoxious thing to do. I mean, we call ourselves a nation, and then this issue of ethnic rivalry and tribalism actually comes in, and it's eating deep into the fabric of the politics in itself and the government makeup. I mean, Buhari actually surrounded himself with his tribesmen, and it's all part of the problem.
I wonder if Nigeria should be like a model nation, except for we're kind of advocating the end of nations in a way, or at least I am. I don't know. Al's a patriot, right? But I think.
No, I've been. You've heard me. I've got the Declaration of Dependence. I've got my fragmentation theory. I'm ready to see it all blown up.
because.
Well, I'm a Nigerian. That there are certain things that I can't really say I'm proud of about my country, and it's so very sad. This country would have actually been one of the greatest in Africa before now, and it's so sad that we are still talking about the same problems every single day. Like I said, I'm approaching my mid-40s now, and I remember when I was younger. I use the electricity issue as an example now. I could use so many things, but let me talk about the electricity. In the 1980s, when I was growing up, in a week, maybe for like 3 days, it is possible for Nigerians to experience a total blackout. And the promises were that we will solve the issue. For each government, it was as if it was a priority, but all was a lie. And now I am a married man. I've been married for 13 years. I have my kids. I have a boy and I have 2 daughters. And I am still talking about this problem. I'm still experiencing this problem. But what am I trying to say? If my father were to be alive, he would see his grandchildren. And then his children actually complain about electricity. I complain. My brothers complain. My sisters complain.
I remember that when I was there too.
Oh, okay. I mean, my own children are also experiencing it too. what does that say about Nigeria? What does that say about the future of Nigeria?
Tunde, what's the situation with the Nigerian youth culture? You know, let's say the 20-year-olds. You know, where's their head at?
You're actually talking about iPhone generation, and they don't care about what we care about.
Really?
No, but so yes, it's as worse. These are people who actually dance on the street. They don't give a damn about the politics, as long as they're able to wake up in the morning, find something to eat, and then play music, chat on the iPhone. They don't even bother to read. It's such a very boring generation. They don't bother to read. They don't bother to study the way someone like me would study, or how I would indoctrinate my son and daughters to face their studies. These people who are they are so reprobate. They don't know anything, and they don't want to know anything. They don't care.
Wow.
I hate to say it, but that is James again. It sounds an awful lot like our youth, by the way. And if you go down to NYU, which is like a very big, vibrant university in the middle of our downtown cultural district, it's exactly what you just described, basically.
We just lost Tunde.
Yes, we did.
But
that was a good roll, though. All right, unlocking the room. The room is unlocked.
Well, that was fascinating.
It was. I'm glad
I've had my run-ins with the Fulani herdsmen, doing immigration cases for the Nigerians. It's an interesting situation, really rough.
now, what's the Boko Haram situation in relation to what he was talking about? Because I don't know about the tribal affiliation of that group.
Well, they're fundamentalist. They're fundamentalist Muslim, extreme Muslim fundamentalist groups, but the Fulani herdsmen, who are, they're different than Boko Haram, but they are much more aggressive, much more aggressive. At least they tend to be among the justifications that I'm hearing from people who have left certain parts of the country. The problem with this government is they get into relocation. Our Justice Department, well, can you relocate? So I have to prove that they can't relocate, that there's no place where they can go. That's a little bit harder to do because Nigeria is a large country, and you always have the urban areas like Lagos and places like that. Here's Tunde coming back, I think.
Oh.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I ran out of data, so I have to recoup.
Oof, sorry.
Yeah. So.
Hope is this costing you a fortune to meet? Is it costing you a fortune to meet to pay for the data?
Yes, of course it is. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You can call us collect.
I beg your pardon?
Next time you reverse, is there a way that you can call collect?
I want a house party.
No.
Prisoners when they call their family, charges are reversed.
When they call their daughters.
No, it's not possible. That Nigeria is not much of a producing country as such. So I actually spend a lot on data. I actually spend a lot. Even if I want to do my research, I spend a lot. I spend close to about every week. I spend close to about 8,000 naira. I can't really process the equivalent. Yes, the equivalent to the dollar right now, but 8,000 naira every week.
I can't remember how much a naira is, but I want to say like 70 to $1, but I can't remember now.
I think it's about 450 naira to a dollar. And wow, I can't calculate that right now. So that's about 450 or close to about 500 naira to a dollar, which is pretty bad for the economy.
8,000 naira is $21.
Okay, so you quickly, all right, that's approximately. So that's it. It's pretty bad. It's pretty expensive.
Well, I mean, one of the questions, what you're describing in terms of the dysfunction of the government, I mean, we have terrible dysfunction in terms of allocation of resources right now, which is so fundamental to.
In the United States?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the accumulation of wealth right now compared to, I mean, it's like, half of the people in the country fall below the poverty line or something like that. It's kind of extraordinary.
That's a global situation, Steve. I think that's probably true across the board. I'm not critiquing your point. You're making an excellent point. Just saying, unfortunately, I think that's the way things are going everywhere.
Yeah, which is precisely why there has to be a different type of global thinking in terms of, I mean, in fact, these corporations operate globally, and they are not necessarily responsible to any particular government. I mean, I think Ireland sued Google or something like that, and won and had, forced them to pay taxes in Ireland, but to a large extent they operate fairly freely across every border, and the resources are kind of siphoned up to a few people, and it has to do with the planning of a system, really.
Tunde, is that an idea of America that you have? That this sense of what Bernie Sanders calls the 1%? Is that a concept that you feel is, as Al was saying, global, or how would you understand it for just America? Is it too fine, too nuanced a thing to imagine, or is it something that we're very aware of here?
You want me to be frank with you?
Sure.
You want to?
Okay. I don't know if what I'm going to say will make sense, but I just like Stephen, just like some of the things some of the comments that you've actually made about the situation in the United States. I mean, I used to adore the United States before people like Trump became president. But right now, I feel a little different because I don't think everything has actually worked accordingly ever since he became president, and it's so sad because we really looked up to the United States as the most powerful country in the world, a place to be. In my language, we call it Iluoba, which means God's own country. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Iluoba. I might try to write that and send it to Stephen much later on the Messenger on Facebook. Iluoba means God's own country, and I grew up with that. And it was a place that I really wanted to be. In fact, I thought perhaps after my postgraduate here in Nigeria, I could find a way to get a job somewhere in Michigan where Ken Harold actually teaches. Actually taught before he retired, or maybe Yale, or maybe Alabama, or or Illinois. You know, I had all this dream, but I don't know what's happening to the United States right now. And now it's so crazy that Trump is so hell-bent to be reelected. And for us, it's so sad. And we know that if he becomes the president for the second term, it's not gonna work at all. I'm not even thinking about my country now because my country is actually a bullshit country, as it were. We're only trying to manage to, be called Nigerians. But then, the problem of Nigeria is so much that if you continue to think about it, you just fall sick and die. But then, look elsewhere. Look elsewhere. Look to countries that didn't have a lot of problems, like the United States of America. But now the United States of America is actually having issues because of one man. And I could go as far as praying for the United States of America than praying for my own country. It's really that bad. And just like, I don't know if that answers your question anyway, but just like Stephen. Okay. You want to? Okay. Now, just like I'll be very brief now. Just like Stephen noted, I caught something from the statement he made. There is a global problem. Each country is having its own problem, and which means that there is a universal conundrum. There is a universal quagmire that is putting all these countries in a jinx. And we need to find it. We need to locate it, and we need to begin to think of, we need to think of a way to sort all these problems out. But the question is, do we really feel that these problems will be sorted out? I mean, countries are at war, states are at war, groups, no matter how small, are at war with themselves. Communities are at war with themselves, even in the least imagined countries. So it's not necessarily about reimagining. If you want to reimagine an ideal society, you know what to do. But the question is, will you actually be given the opportunity to do that? Am I going to be given the opportunity to do that? Even if I have an idea that will thrive, who wants to listen to me? Who wants to listen to me among all these, all these leaders? Who wants to listen to someone like me? I have an ideal strategy that will actually make my country a better place. But the corrupt leader, the corrupt kleptomaniac, the man who is hungry for power, absolute power corrupts, and once he holds on to power, he holds on to power like a gorilla. And we have many of them like that. The question is, who wants to listen to me?
You should run for president.
Yeah. The one thing that I'll say today is that it's not about one person, although we might want to point to Trump. But I do a lot of work in my neighborhood, and I always say that's the problem, that we're always looking for someone, but it's there. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but I think it needs to be a cooperation, not a. I think part of our dilemma, and you probably see this, I'm sure, in film, the author. There's always this author, the guru, the leader. We have a kind of natural disposition to function that way. So it's understandable. But I think we're seeing with voting here, and I see in my little localized place, when you break that down and remove that centering of the centering force or the sole author, you break that down, it becomes it becomes more of a reality, a potential reality. It seems more like possible. There seems more possibility there for progress. That's all I would say. But the more that we rely on a strong man or one person or a leader to emerge, I think the less we get anywhere. Because we wind up saying,
you're very correct, Williams. I mean, for one, for every leader that emerges, that he must have a lot of supporters. Right. That you understand this kind of hegemonic hegemonic idea, hegemonic arrangement, which normally thrives in a society like any society where you have one leader. Of course, there will always be supporters. In other words, you now throw it back to the populace, and then you come up with a conclusion that, okay, it's not necessarily the leader that is the problem, but the people themselves also form part of this problem. So perhaps the problem needs to be sorted out first from the people. But then, as much as you have a point, I would also like to say that in a country like Nigeria, the people don't matter anymore when it comes to choosing the leaders. Right now, they just pick themselves and then rig elections, and then you find them in power. So it's not as if my vote actually counts. That's why sometimes I wouldn't really throw it back to the people. It's as if the people don't have a say, and this is very sad, because it destroys the fabric. It destroys the elements or the features that actually make up democracy. I don't know if you agree with me that while we want.
No, I was just going to say that we're in America and we all have electricity. We don't have a lot of the pressures, meaning it might be easier for me to conceive of people having more ability to make change as a group than you do, meaning the soil here still has nutrients in it and the ability to sustain growth, where it seems in Nigeria it's a little more parched.
It's complicated. You don't want to. I mean, people like you. People like you will feel sorry for people like me. Because perhaps we've actually found ourselves in the wrong place. I don't know. What do I know? And it doesn't. There is no light in the tunnel right now. There isn't any glimmer of hope that Nigeria will experience those better days again. I mean, we build so many churches right now. The pastor is actually praying for a miracle to happen. People actually run to church because that is the only place. That's an issue that I've not actually discussed with you, but it's a major issue in Nigeria. Everybody wants to run to church to pray to God, to help us sustain the country, to have a good life, to get a lot of money where that you don't work for, that kind of stuff. It actually shows the mentality of the average Nigerian who not because he doesn't want to work, but because he's actually frustrated. He's only looking for something that can actually make him sane or make us sane.
One of the other things we've been kicking around today is journalism and press, and the perversion of mass media news dissemination, and how this has sort of supported all of these perversions, as opposed to serving as an independent, force, respected independent force, critical, respected. We have basically mouthpieces, even in
performers.
Yeah, I can wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, okay, I think I want to hear some Trump bashing, and I'll turn on MSNBC and hear nothing but Trump bashing. I say, well, let me hear some Trump praising, and I'll turn to another channel and get nothing but, you know what I mean? Where can one look for truth? When your so-called journalists who preach the pillar of integrity and independence answer that specific drum.
That's a very, very topical issue you've actually drawn, and I don't think it's something we can totally explore. But I'll just say a few words concerning that as it relates to Nigeria, and I'd like to make reference to. Let me see if I can paraphrase. I can't remember what Harold Pinter, the Nobel Prize winner for Literature of 2005, said about truth. he said something in his Nobel lecture. He said that sometimes truth may not be the kind of answers that you actually want. In other words, what he was trying to say is that truth can actually be a fallacy. And then at times, the fallacy you don't want to hear may actually be the truth. I'm just trying to see how I could, put the pieces together for you to understand. Now, this is how it is played. During the time of Abacha, we had a very strong press. We had a very strong media. We have very strong media outlets like Newswatch, Times, Daily Times. Some of them are now defunct because they stood for the truth. Now, most of the journalists working and most of the writers actually working in these media houses were incarcerated because they were actually criticizing the government of Abacha. And some of them stood for the truth, and they would actually die. They would actually stand for the truth, and they would criticize the government if they have to. It was a time when most media people were fearless. They were bold, they were resolute, they were ready to die for the truth, they were ready to go to prison for what was right. A few of them died. I'm sure you heard about the death of Dele Giwa during the early 90s. Sorry, during 1986, 1985, 1986. This was somebody who was always criticizing the government, which was not a bad thing. But this man was blown to death. Of course, we know the person who was actually behind it. Kunle Ajibade was incarcerated for venting his anger against some of the policies of Sani Abacha. He was actually lucky to be alive. He was lucky to have been released from prison shortly after the death of Abacha. Now, today, it's a different ballgame in town. Most journalists are not ready to face a government person because they actually fear for their lives. So if you were bold enough to do that, which means you had a power behind you who could actually encumber whichever despot or leader that may want to hurt you. But people die, people are abducted, people are kidnapped because journalists are kidnapped because they were found telling the truth, they were found prognosing, they were trying to look for information that didn't concern them. I mean, it's very bad right now. You can't compare those times. You can't compare those times to what's happening right now. It's as if they've actually sold their soul to the devil, and they don't care. Why? And it is because they just want to keep their jobs. They don't want their media houses shut down. They don't want the editors or the publishers to be incarcerated and then thrown into prison for nothing. So in order to save your job, you try to ask questions that the leaders want to questions that they may have answers to. You have to try as much as possible to avoid asking questions that will annoy them. I mean, it's so terrible.
So into this void now, are there filmmakers, are there artists that are addressing some of these situations?
Yes, they are.
There is. Okay, this is interesting.
Yes, they are. But of course, there are only few. There are only few.
Are they within Nigeria, or are they?
Of course they are. Of course they are. Of course they are.
Yeah.
Well, let me see. Outside the country, I can't think of anyone outside the country for now. But I know that there are bold and very strong and very defiant bohemian filmmakers that are still in the country. I mean, I'm trying to put together. I'm trying to purchase a lot of films. I mean, a collection of films by Tunde Onikoyi for Stephen right now. I mean, we've been discussing that in the last couple of days. I mean, Tunde Onikoyi is about 72, 73 years old now, and he has been making films that have been telling the emperor thou indeed art naked without fear or favor. And of course, we have people like Femi Odugbemi, who is an advocate of cinema for social change and cinema for political change. And then we also have Ishaya Bako, who who is doing, he's relatively young, who is actually doing beautiful work in Nigeria. And whether these people actually know how to protect themselves, I don't know, but they are unpretentiously defiant, and they have to. I mean, each time they make their work, they're doing it to criticize the government and making them realize that Nigeria must move forward. The rate of corruption is too much. It must stop. You know, there was a time when Femi Olugumi said that corruption had already been legitimized in Nigeria, and this is.
If these films can have some international, let's say, exposure, you know, is it possible that this could create, you know, I'm going to say not the word embarrassment, but, you know, certainly a self-reflection, you know, of what the problems are, the government, the powers that be. I don't know. I mean, but it seems like this is the Nigerian film world could be a very powerful instrument right now.
You're correct, but we've been saying the same thing for over how many years now? We've been saying the same thing. So at the end of the day, the people get to see it, they talk about how the change should occur, and then we're back to the drawing board again. You know, you remember, I earlier said something about the stupidity of our cyclic nature. You know, you start from the same problem, you try to solve it, but then you end up back to that problem again. So for me, the long and short of the matter is that these people are only doing what they deem is right. They're only doing what they deem is right. They're actually using their art to see how they can change society. They can actually do that continuously until they die. But the question is, are our leaders listening? And if they are listening, what are they doing? I mean, we are doing our part, but it's as if the leadership is actually turning a deaf ear to some of the things that we do.
So what about education? I mean, you're a teacher. How many students do you help appreciate some of what you're talking about, or let's say?
Oh, well, sorry, there's a noise filtering.
Yes, there is. Sounds like crossing channels with like
I think that's
someone has a mic.
I think that's you.
There's a Zoom going on.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
And
Gotta mute.
Multitasking Zoom.
Just hit mute. Hit
Okay.
mute on the bottom of your screen. There's a mic.
Hit the microphone. I just found it. Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Oops. Wow, that's kind of okay. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Well, these are enthusiastic students, really. These are enthusiastic students who are so enthusiastic about getting an education. But then, when you get the education, what are you going to do with it when you graduate?
We're going to vote.
The life vote. Oh, come on. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Anyway, the long and short of the matter is that these are enthusiastic students who don't actually know the world of Nigeria, outside the university, outside the four corners of the university. It's a different, I make them realize that it's a different ball game outside the university. You start a new life. You see, you get the first education in Nigerian university, but then the real education is actually the social realities that you're going to encounter after leaving the university. And I do this, and I say this without any pretension. I try to make them realize it. I mean, I grew up with the fact that I was going to be a rich man when I get out of the university, when I start working and all that. But seriously, I grew up with the notion that, we're going to change the world. We're going to do a revolution. Ours is going to be better than the one that occurred when Napoleon was president in France. That, they were all fallacious. And It's still the same thing happening today.
So you
It's still the same thing.
you proselytize a realism with your students.
Well, if you say that, yes. I need to. Tomorrow, in the next 30 years, I will be 74. I will be 74 if God spares my life. I don't want my student or my children to say I didn't do anything. All right, Dad, you saw the problem. You experienced the problem. What did you do? What did you tell the policeman extorting from innocent people, innocent drivers? What did you do when you were driven by your driver from Ede to Akure, where you live, and then you encounter about 5 roadblocks, and then before your driver is being passed or being allowed to pass, he has to pay a bribe for what? What did you do? So that's why when you ask the question, that is I don't really know your name now. When you ask the question about filmmakers, no, not you, Williams. I mean, my good father who said he worked with the immigration at some point.
Al, yeah.
Al.
Yes, I don't know your name, sir.
You're muted. You're muted, Al.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I muted my button.
Okay, so what's your name now? What's your name, sir?
Al. A-L.
Al, okay.
Who are you?
Okay, now Al asked a very, 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 very important question about what the filmmakers are actually doing in Nigeria. Now, I told you that they are doing their best, and they are doing original work. They are making films that are unpretentiously critical, and of course, nothing is happening. There are no changes still, but they've done their best. If people ask them, what did you do? They'll tell you there are evidence that you can go see my work. I mean, it got to a point, this same government, I need to mention this same government wanted to co-opt Tunde Onikoyi into their cabinet. Now, for like 2 months, he thought he could change the entire setting of, the sub-cabinet. But then when he found out that these people were not ready to change, he resigned. He went to the president and said, sir, I am very sorry, I can't work with you, and I can't work with your cabinet. I have tendered my resignation, and please don't bother to call me. Don't bother to send me any letter of apology. Don't bother to lure me back, because I will not come. Bye-bye. So for me, these are people who understand what they want for society. And even if they are not going to get that ideal society, they are not going to be co-opted to be corrupt. So if you ask these people 20 years from now, what did you do? What did you do when all these problems were erupted? And they will really have something to say. So apart from indoctrinating my students, I have something to show for it, that at least I did my best possible to change Nigeria.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
This is why we have the think tank.
Yeah.
So we can tell our children that, well, we sat around thinking about this shit a lot.
Wow, you're so blunt. You're really so blunt. Unpretentiously blunt.
Becca has a lot about that.
It is important because you do have
Better than a beast in the forest.
It's noteworthy though, because honestly, my observation of the New York City context at least is when you do have like a vibrant social movement, that's all mobilized and it's got traction and it's got attention. The vast majority of people who call themselves progressive and left do not support it. And this is a very, very clear pattern. People use them. They will, make something out of them. But people are too busy either fulfilling their careers or just trying to struggle to survive to really meaningfully participate. And so these movements never get very large. Everybody is approaching it from a cultural context, as a painter, as a writer, whatever. But movements just need people to show up, actually. That's all you need. You need people to put their own work down, to put their egos away, and to show up and to serve them. And that does not happen. I'm wondering what the situation in Nigeria is. Hopefully you heard my preamble.
Well, some people actually show up. You see, it still boils down to what end? We have a lot of people showing up. We have a lot of people walking the street. We have a lot of people going on strike just to make sure that they hurt the leaders and make them realize that they need to listen to us. You have a lot of people showing up. People walk the streets. I mean, Wole Soyinka recently, some 4 or 5 months ago, actually walked the streets with some people. And then you have people like Tunde Onikoyi, doing the same thing. And then you had all these revolutionary contenders for government offices and all that. Then you find people en masse coming out to show the government that, look, the government has actually gone too far. But the question is, to what end? That's why some people actually feel that they're only wasting their time. The government people will not listen to them. It's all a sham and a shame. Nothing is done. We keep writing petitions. We keep preferring solutions, and nothing is done. So it's as if people just feel that they're endlessly doing a lot of disfavor for themselves by going on the streets, talking, lashing out on the government, throwing placards, Aluta Continuum, making all the noises, talking about those who are looting the treasury, talking about the increment of fuel, the fuel crisis, the lack of employment, etc. It's very sad, really. Of course, you find a lot of people coming out, but to what end? It's such a very sad situation, really.
Yeah. Well, just a final quick comment. It's not the protest that I'm referring to. People show up to protest. They don't show up to organize. They don't show up to stick around and actually build the movement. And they assume that because there's 1 billion people in the streets, there's this big, powerful organization behind it that has all this power, and that's not true. Most of these big protests are either unorganized or barely at all organized. And the movements themselves are catastrophically weak. And the illusion created by the street protests, in a way, is part of the problem. Because people just assume there's so many people, surely that will translate to decisions being made differently. And that's not how it works. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, just talking about the situation in Nigeria.
Tunde, what questions do you have for us?
Questions? Well,
maybe you don't know enough about our crazy think tank here yet.
I think he's frozen right now.
And we've lost you.
Yeah, it might be actually helpful to not use the video just to create a little more space in the pipe.
This is my first meeting.
You joining?
I think that was maybe the beginning of what he was going to say.
Yeah, it was a natural break, though, if we don't get him back.
Yeah.
I was just going to also, this issue of truth, I thought was interesting. Did you say Harold Pinter?
Yeah.
Is that the playwright?
Yeah.
So I thought, Stuart, you could tie in Beckett there, because I think between them there's issues of truth, or the way we know truth, or try to know it.
Yeah, that whole thing about waiting for it to go, there's that moment when, right at the end, when he's saying, well, what do? We got to do something. There are people dying in front of it. Billions, But we can just fold our arms, or we can do something, and that's what I can do, and I'll do it. And then they said, but who will care? What difference will it make?
But that's an existential.
How many people can do the same? Billions. There are billions of people who want to do the same. Want to do a little something. All he says in the end, we can wait. We can be here tomorrow. How many people can say the same? Billions. So that's two people like alone in the country.
Sorry, I'm back.
Welcome.
I don't know what happened. I had to change positions.
Stu was responding to your Harold Pinter reference.
Yeah, I thought this issue of understanding what truth is now, or toying with what it means between Pinter and Stewart, who's a Beckett, or he was working on a Beckett piece, I thought was another person who had had a lot of thinking about what truth is in their plays. Pinter in particular.
Okay.
I was curious if you could. Well, we were just starting to talk about that because I think that's something that maybe gets redefined after this. With what Al was saying, there's no way. It's hard through our media to find truth, or where does it last? But it has to be maybe reconceived or read. We have to find other ways to call it, or what to call it, or change the name. I don't know.
But Stu, when you say when we're talking about that, it really cuts to the core of that future. The crisis that we have now is nothing compared to the crisis that's coming, and it does have to do with the billions. I mean, it has to do with how do we save ourselves. It's like a sinking ship, and you either say sauve qui peut, help yourself, save yourself, or you have to organize in order for there to be life raft for the coming crisis. And we're just glimpsing the beginning of it. But anyway, that's.
I know. Well, I always think of the people. My Titanic, the quartet playing. What is it? The song. It's a Christian song to him, playing as the ship goes down. Taps. Sorry, that's so dark. Tunde, I don't. You have a frustration level that is remarkable to hear first person. So I find my first world dilemma very tiny.
Okay.
Well, I will agree that level of frustration is actually the only path to healing the larger situation, because we had a study, a very substantial longitudinal study, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I forget, that more or less proved statistically that America was no longer a democracy, or we're at that current time not a democracy. I probably every month since I first read that report 10 years ago or whatnot, tried to bring this topic up with people, And I can say that about 95% of the time, people would accuse me of being negative, of being conspiracy theorists, all sorts of garbage. All I wanted them to do was look at the study. And so we are miles away from understanding that we're not a democracy. And I think the same thing is happening globally. And I don't think you're going to see a path to the other side to be able to negotiate climate change when the basics of serving your own people are too much of a challenge for current leadership. They can't do it. They're too addicted to stuff and too greedy. You could even say cultic accurately.
Yeah, I mean we have like mile-long food lines in this country right now, where people are just, churches are giving away food, and they can't give away enough to satisfy the people who show up, and the government has basically abandoned us as far as coordinating a solution, or at least even a short-term solution.
I was talking to one people on that food line who said we need billions, to help the people, and we should put it in a nice shady spot in the country and away from anybody that can make a Maddox again and have doctors there for them. So billions for that, right? But meanwhile, the people are waiting outside that church where they give the food out all night long in a little park behind a defunct mental an infirmary that used to stand there, a big brick building, and taking showers in whatever water fountains they can find or hydrants, and stretching out amongst 50 others all around them, waking up in the morning, waiting for the breakfast to come at 11 or 12 o'clock when the church serves it.
Where is that, Stuart?
The Apostle Church.
Where?
It's at 29th Street and 9th Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Where?
Yeah. I've been there, yeah.
Holy Church of the Apostle. It was on the Underground Railroad, I think. Even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm sorry. My Zoom fatigue monitor.
But we've landed on such a dark place, but I guess that's where we need to be.
Yeah.
No, disagree. We need to find a way that's less horrible to end all meetings and gatherings.
well, I think I'm gonna try to have an upside. I think it's amazing that we managed to have this conversation across half the world, and I feel pretty inspired by hearing from Tunde and having Stu join us just as an occasional surprise guest. And
seriously, I would be willing to contribute a Bitcoin, payment so that Tunde can be a true guest and not.
I would like to as well. Do you have Venmo? What do you got over there? PayPal? What are you doing?
Whatever it is, I would be honored to be able to do that. So, because we do this for nothing here, this stuff.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful.
Because we want to have you in this conversation again.
I learned.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I learned an awful lot tonight. My Zoom mechanism is fading, so I'm going to probably have to say good evening. But I want to thank you, and hopefully see you soon and continue this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's nice seeing you, Al. Hope to see you later.
Good night, Al.
yeah, thanks so much. everybody.
We should all go. But Tunde, thank you very much. And Stephen, can you connect us by email or maybe drop that into the document? I downloaded one of your papers, Tunde, to read.
Oh, which one is that?
It's called Accented Cinema.
Wow, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Good.
You're going to enjoy it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You all as the unexpected guest myself.
Yeah.
Sort of a second figure, I think, in all of this, craft tape or Waiting for Godot. But to be a part of this larger world picture, as I think where those psychic characters are lost. So thanks for bringing me in.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
Take care, and all the best to you over there, and all the best.
Thank you.
Here.
Yes, indeed. Definitely be safe. And
should I go? Should I go? Do we go? I'm trying to do my best, Beckett. Forgive me. Terrible.
Yeah, I respect for the whole verse. I'll send that to Steve, and he can disperse it.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Tunde.
Good night. Thank you, Stephen, for organizing our
Bye, James.
I'll email. I'll email you, Tunde. Thanks again.
Okay.
Wonderful to have you. And
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, and we'll talk on. Send me those references on Facebook that you mentioned, the filmmakers, and and the Yoruba word that you mentioned as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that in the morning. I'll do all that in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.